All right, we are live. Welcome back. This is another episode of our live stream. This is Bamboo Languages. I'm Bryson. We have Stephen here, one of our amazing English professors. And if you are learning languages, you have a passion for learning other languages and cultures, and in particular are studying English, you're in the right place. Historically, we've had more informational set our listeners and followers an option, an opportunity to practice listening um, English, the listening skills in English with a native speaker and a proficient speaker. And it'll obviously translate well for a lot of different reasons. One, the listening section, IELTS. Two, TOEFL. Three, just if you want to travel and have a passion for that. So that's what we're doing today. Um, that is kind of just the intro. We have a couple of things I want to discuss as far as what our platform does and how it would relate to listening. We are focused on community and conversation. Stephen here has an amazing language group that focuses on English for business, and that happens to be our topic today from a cultural lens. And so we wanted to discuss the cultural differences in doing business in both the United States, where I'm from, and Colombia, where Stephen lives. We have a large follower base in both Colombia and the United States, so we think it would be beneficial to you there. And with that, I'd like to kick us off and introduce El Mejor Profe del Mundo. Everybody give him a round of applause. Stephen, how are you doing today?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Verizon, for having me here again. It's a pleasure to be with the Bamboo community.
Nice, nice. So just to kick things off, like I said, it's gonna be pretty informal, pretty conversational. We know one thing that's really important when learning languages is learning the culture of that particular place that you're trying to visit or maybe do business in, for example, almost just as important as learning the language. For example, you do not want to offend a potential friend or business partner by doing something that's common in your country or city, but not common in the other one that you're visiting. And so, with that being said, I'd like to kick it off to start with just a little bit more about the communication styles in doing business in Colombia, and I can share more about the United States. And feel free to let the folks know you're actually from Venezuela, right? But live in Colombia.
Yeah, I'm
Maybe
actually
that could
from
help add
Venezuela.
context.
I am Colombian Venezuelan. On my father's
Perfect,
side, I am Colombian, but I am Venezuelan on my mother's side, and I was born and raised in Venezuela, so I am both.
perfect, perfect. You got a unique perspective to our conversation today.
hmm Both cultures are very similar, though.
We were talking about something right before we
Uh,
came live here about the punctuality piece in communication. Would you like to share a little bit more about that, and then let
yeah,
the folks know more about the cultural communication?
Yeah, yeah, totally. Well, as I said before, I feel like I'm not the perfect example because I don't follow these standards, or I would say these beliefs or conceptions that we have about culture when it comes to Latin American people. Because I tend to be more direct,
Uh-huh.
business oriented. But here in Colombia and in Latin America, we love doing some small talk. So
Hmm.
that's always very important. When we start business, when we are doing business with a person, we always start talking about our family, sports, our favorite football team because we love football. We talk about food. We complain about the weather, even if it is cold in Bogota or hot in Cartagena. So we always complain about the weather and talk about sports. Um, but I would say that we always try to connect with the person. We feel
Hmm.
that we cannot do business with another person if we don't feel that connection. And this is something
Hmm.
that characterizes, I would say, not only Colombians, but Latin Americans. And this is
Hmm.
something that contrasts with American culture and European culture as well.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I've noticed that myself, just in communicating with folks from other countries. Let's use an email, for example. Like you mentioned, we're in the United States very, or much more direct than other cultures. And so if I have a request, it'll be, hey, can you send this? But I always get in response from somebody, let's say in Latin America, ¿Cómo estás? how are things
Yeah.
going? You know,
Yeah.
how's your day going? How's your week going? And then further down in the email, they'll get to the ask and the request and kind of respond that way. So I think that speaks to a little bit about the relationship building and small talk as far as the communication goes when doing business and also just when talking with friends in another country. Is that kind of how you've experienced it as well with the United States?
Yeah. Well, I don't. I think it's actually different. We tend to be more direct. We say hello, hi, good morning, and then we go straight to the point when
Hmm.
I deal with Americans. Okay, so and I think that this is not a bad thing at all. I think it's less time consuming because let's say that here in Latin America or
Hmm.
in some countries, especially for example in Colombia and Venezuela, we tend to say hi, hello, how are you? Hi,
Hmm.
great. I'm glad to hear that. And then after all that greeting, then we get to the point. So
The small
sometimes,
talk, huh?
yeah. So let's try. This is it's not a very good idea. It depends on the person. If the person is used to working with American people or with Europeans, they are not going to feel offended. But if we contact a Latin American person and then we just go straight to the point, they're going to say, "But this person is rude.
Hmm.
Why didn't he or she ask me how I was going?"
Hmm.
So this is how they felt. And this has happened to me also with coworkers. Sometimes I
Oh,
don't have time to engage in greetings, and I say good morning,
uh-huh.
and this is what I need, or this is the information that I have to give you, and that's it.
Hmm.
And when a person contacts me in the same way, I would say that's okay. I don't see that as a wrong thing or
Hmm.
anything, but some people will. So we
Yeah.
need to be careful. It depends on the communication style, and I think that after interacting with the person, we know if we can be direct upfront about things, or if we have to
Hmm.
go through all the normal greetings.
Yeah, the
So, but what
formalities.
about you?
Do you think that your more direct communication style comes from the fact that you've studied English and have been exposed to other cultures in the world that help you kind of get a more well-rounded perspective?
That's a very good question, Bryson. That's a very good question. I hadn't thought about it, but I think that it has had an effect on the
Hmm.
way I communicate, especially when I was in France. Okay, at
Hmm.
first, they tend to be direct too and upfront about things.
Hmm.
And even though maybe they are not the most punctual people when I'm talking about French,
Hmm.
because in French we have a saying, "les 5 minutes français." It's like the
Hmm.
French, the 5 French minutes. That
Let's
means that
stop here,
they
by
are
the way,
all
everybody. This
uh,
man knows English, Spanish, and French, so we
yeah,
got
les 5 minutes
trilingual, and
français.
you're learning something else too, right? Or no?
Uh, a little bit of Deutsch.
There
That's
you
German,
go.
sorry.
Yeah,
English
yeah.
and
So he has a
Deutsch.
good perspective of Latin
Yeah.
American culture, U.S., and obviously European and French. But sorry, what was the saying that you mentioned?
Yeah, it's just that they tend to be more direct. And at the beginning, I felt kind of offended,
Hmm.
okay, at first, but then I came to understand, and I think that that changed my mindset.
Hmm.
With regards to punctuality, because we value people's time. Okay, when you are
Hmm.
punctual, you respect. It's a way to show respect. If you are not
Hmm.
punctual, then you are disrespecting this person's time, and I think that this has to do with the way we live in these
Hmm.
countries, in the USA and in Europe. It's like everything is life is hectic, and it's these are fast-paced countries with a
Hmm.
fast-paced lifestyle. And I think that I have got used to it. And now that I'm working
Hmm.
for an American company, and I'm
Hmm.
engaging more with American people, so I can see this as well. So, and I feel
Yeah,
comfortable with it. But yes, I think that this is what changed my mindset. Uh,
yeah, yeah. That makes sense.
as
And
in,
I think that uh, as an example, for someone listening to us learning English, that's another positive to not only know the country that you're going to visit or doing business in, but the culture that surrounds it, just because it makes you more well-rounded, more understanding of other communication styles. You asked me what I've experienced in the US. I think we're much more direct, as you said. I will say it's a spectrum, though. Like there are differences between people. So like you might meet somebody who primarily works in finance or technology, like an engineer, and their communication style is very different from somebody who works in sales or human resources. And that's just because, as an example, some of the different professions don't necessarily have to interact with people on a day-to-day basis. And so when they do speak, it's more like direct, one word, two-word sentences to the point. Whereas if you don't understand their communication style, you might be offended and you're from the exact same culture. So I will say we're more direct, but there's a spectrum of much more relationship oriented to much more direct, just even within our own country. So I'll say that. I haven't had the opportunity to work with too many people from Europe. I know a couple of people from Spain, and they're very nice as well. I think probably a little bit more direct in Latin America, but less direct in the United States. And it probably is a byproduct of our culture, very fast paced and action oriented. But that's my experience with it, and probably pretty similar to what you've seen working with American companies and throughout your travels.
So you think that basically there is a difference when it comes to jobs, right?
Yeah, I think jobs are like at times indicative of the individual's personality, or you learn that communication style if you have an interest in that job. Difficult to say what leads to what, but I've noticed, according to occupations, communication styles often differ. Have you seen that in Latin America?
Oh, yeah, well, actually, I haven't. I would say that there are major differences when it comes to regions. Yeah,
Hmm.
so, for example, on the Caribbean
A
coast,
good
we
point.
are we tend to be very informal.
Uh-huh.
Okay,
Because the weather's
so
perfect there, man. You're just relaxing by the
uh,
beach. There's no problems.
exactly. We are very informal, very, very informal. But people from the mountainous region of Colombia, let's say from the Andes,
Hmm.
Bogota, Medellin, they tend to be much more formal when it comes to
Ah,
interactions. They actually use usted, for example. They don't use tú. They say,
no
¿Usted
two
cómo
at all, huh?
está? Yeah, ¿Usted cómo está? Like, how are
Interesting.
you? But in a formal way. Even if you're talking to a friend, for example, you use
Does
usted.
that sound weird to you? Living in the Caribbean region, does it sound weird to hear usted all the time?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't sound weird at all because we grow with this culture on TV. For example, a lot of TV
Hmm.
programs are actually made in that region, so we are used
Hmm.
to hearing that. Maybe they, I don't know if they feel that way. It's different because, as I said before, we are exposed to all this culture from the Andes, the Andean region of Colombia. So I would say
Hmm.
no, it doesn't sound weird at all, but I wouldn't say usted to a
Hmm.
friend. Okay,
Gotcha.
so I cannot see myself
Hmm.
using that formal language. Okay, so no. Yeah, but and well, there are other differences. Okay, so for example, some people use vos. Like for example, from where I come from in Venezuela, we use vos. Like in
Interesting.
Argentina, yeah.
Interesting.
So for example, ¿cómo estáis?
Really,
Okay.
I've never heard that. I knew in Argentina they used that, but I didn't know regions of Venezuela did as well.
Yeah, and in Colombia too,
Hmm.
some regions.
Is it like an informal voice, or is it like in a business setting, for example, you'd say
It's
"Vos
actually
cómo estáis"?
informal. It's informal, actually. It's
Hmm.
informal, but I would say that it's rather than formality, it's more about familiarity.
Hmm.
So, say, we speak this way with friends, with family members, with relatives. So this is what we
Hmm.
normally use. Yes, there
Interesting.
are different
There's
formats.
yeah, there's regional differences here. Are you familiar with like obviously there's you all, right? How are you all doing? Ustedes for Spanish. How about y'all, like the
Like
contraction? Do you know that
with
one?
English, yeah,
Yeah, so like generally speaking in the South, the southern parts
yeah.
of the United States, people will say y'all, like how are y'all doing? Whereas in the North, it'll be you all, and there's different other regions or just how are you doing? And so, like, if you're doing business in these different areas in the United States, it's important to know these regional differences so that if you hear it, you know that it's not offensive, and you obviously know how to respond. But y'all is one. Have you heard the term ain't before? So like is
Yeah,
not. Yeah,
yeah,
that's another
in
one.
it,
It's much more informal though. Like you probably
but
wouldn't
in
use it
it,
in business. Yeah, yeah.
like the
In it as
British
well.
people, again, in it.
In it, yeah. Is that interesting for you to, or was it difficult to pick up on the slang? Because it's not necessarily like something you would practice in a textbook or
It took,
in school,
took
you
me a
know?
it took me a few years. It was after 4 years of studying English. I would say that I
Mm-hmm.
actually got to know what ain't meant. I didn't know
Uh-huh.
about it. Actually, I remember
Mm-hmm.
I watched a video on YouTube and I said, "Ain't? What is that?" So then I understood, and then I saw that in a couple of songs too, and that's
Mm-hmm.
how I. But I almost never use it, honestly. Almost
Yeah,
never
yeah.
use it. But I know what it
It's not the
means.
most professional. We would probably use it in a informal setting with friends.
Yeah.
But some people use it professionally. Like I said, like especially regionally, it's more acceptable than other regions. So you just kind of have to know where you're at.
I was actually coming to that. Now that we're talking about the South and the North of the U.S., are there any
Hmm.
differences when it comes to business or communication patterns when we have the South of the USA and the North?
Yeah, so I think it depends on the region. Obviously, if you look at the United States as a whole, we're much more direct and fast-paced in general relative to other parts. But even within the US, like I mentioned, that spectrum, like the Northeast, New York City, for example, it's a very fast-paced, uh, hectic city at times. Very diverse as well, which is pretty cool. There's a lot of different parts of the world represented. But if you look at like Wall Street and the other financial sectors there, very fast-paced, long work days, communication style obviously a little bit different. Whereas if you again come to the South, like I live in Texas now, but down in Texas and in other areas, Georgia, Florida, generally speaking, communication styles, people talk a little bit slower, deals are a little bit longer and more relationship based. And that's just again regionally, but it kind of translates to how people would speak and the communication styles as well.
Okay.
Have
Now,
you heard
why
that
don't we
before?
move on? Yeah, yeah. Sure. I know that there are a lot of differences between the South and the North of the U.S.,
Hmm.
but I didn't know much about it, so that's why I asked you the question.
Hmm. A lot of differences. There's just one, but yeah, we can take a look at another piece of doing
Yeah.
business. What do you think about uh, you mentioned this earlier, timing and punctuality. Uh,
That's a very interesting
you're
topic.
obviously a very punctual person, but
I am.
when doing business in another country, you have to understand how people set meetings, when to attend, when might be offensive. What's your experience in
Uh,
doing business and meetings in Colombia and with American companies?
because something that I have come to realize is that we are very unpunctual actually when it comes to Latin America. I have a friend. My best friend is not very punctual at all. Okay,
Uh-huh.
so I always tell him, okay, so we are meeting tomorrow at 8 p.m. And then
Mm-hmm.
I am there at 7:55.
Mm-hmm.
And then he waits because he normally lives near downtown, and we normally meet
Mm-hmm.
there. And then he waits until I tell him I'm here in order to leave his house and go there actually. And I
Yeah,
really really hate it. And I say, okay,
yeah.
you did it again. I mean, come on, seriously. And when
Uh-huh.
when he approaches me, I say this, and I show him
Point
my
at the
watch.
clock, huh?
Yeah, it's like now
But
what
he
I normally do. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Bryson.
I was gonna say, is that indicative of like Colombian culture in general, or just this one friend who likes to take his time a little bit?
I would say that most people are like this.
Most
I
people.
mean, yeah, most people. He's not punctual at all. Yeah, but I would say
Mm-hmm.
that most people are not punctual. It depends on the person. But I would say 70% of people are not punctual. They aren't.
So if, for example, if I would come down to have a business meeting in Colombia, or some of our listeners don't expect your business partner to show up on time, or don't be offended if they don't
Exactly.
show up on time.
Exactly. So this is something
Don't
that you can actually expect.
don't point at the watch, huh? That might
Hey,
offend
don't do
them.
that. Oh, yeah, exactly. I do this because he's my friend. I mean, he
Uh-huh.
knows I get mad when he's late.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but no, don't do that. Don't do that to people because they are going to feel offended. Even if
How
you
late
do
would you
it,
say? Is like the
so
average? Is like 30 minutes, an hour? How late is late? You know?
okay. So for me, more than 10 minutes, that's already late.
Mm-hmm.
That's very late. 30 minutes, that's too late. And sometimes I actually leave. If a person is 30 minutes late, it's like okay, so forget about it.
Yeah.
I'm leaving.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's what I normally do. But in Latin America, I would say that people tend to be more flexible when it comes to punctuality. So this
Mm-hmm.
is something that they expect. There was something that I was going to mention when I lived in France. Okay, because even though it's Europe, they tend to be they are not very punctual either. You know, and
Interesting.
when you are invited, yes, when you are because I remember this. I was once invited to a friend's house. We were going to have a meal,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a dinner meal. It was a night meal, so it was for dinner,
Mm-hmm.
and I arrived on time. Actually, if I'm not mistaken, I was there like 2 minutes
Mm-hmm.
early, and then he said, "Hey, look, next time you are not expected to be on time. You know, you can be 5 minutes late and 10 minutes late, and that
Mm-hmm.
shows respect because your guest,
Interesting.
yeah, your guest might still be preparing and getting everything ready for the meal, for the evening. Okay, so
So showing up late was almost respectful at that in that
yeah,
situation.
it's actually to be late. It's actually respectful and polite, and it's expected. So you are expected to be at
Interesting.
least 10 or 15 minutes late. So that gives
Maybe
your
your
host.
friend, your best friend was raised in Paris and you just never knew it. So he has that frame
Uh, I don't
reference.
think so. I don't think so.
I'm just kidding.
It's just
That
he
makes
doesn't
sense.
like waiting. That's actually his problem.
So he rather make you wait instead of be
Exactly.
himself.
That's why.
Uh-huh. Hey, if you see this, man, tell him to listen up and he has to be on
But
time next time.
what are you, Bryson? Are you punctual?
Not very. So there's a little bit of a difference. Maybe it's similar in Colombia, but for us in the professional setting, you're expected to be on time even early, to make sure that it signifies respect to your teammates or other people you're doing business with. For example, if you showed up late to a business meeting, you're likely not going to get a second one. And that's just culturally how it is. Um, in a social setting, I think it depends on the region you're from and your own background, but some people are more late than others. For example, like with some friends, if we have to be there at 8 o'clock, we're both texting at 7:55 saying on the way and get there like at 8:15 or something, you know? So it's a lot more relaxed from a social setting. But to your point, there are certain friends you know who are very punctual. So like if I was meeting you, I wouldn't show up 15 minutes late because I know it would offend you. So that's just kind of like a social thing. But from a business perspective, and for people who might be listening, definitely show up on time, if not early, and that conveys respect. It doesn't matter what region you're in, but that would be kind of like the overarching standard for business communication and punctuality here, I think.
Yeah, that makes sense actually.
Hmm. Well, I think we have time for maybe one more little topic before we get out of
Yeah.
here. Just a couple minutes left. Uh, we have a little bit more about um, kind of like a power dynamic in the sense that
Mm.
if you're at a team at work, for example, is the power spread out across the team, or is there a very clear hierarchy? Like the boss makes the rules and no one questions the boss
Yeah.
in that situation in
Yeah,
Colombia.
In Latin America, I would say in Colombia especially, but in
Hmm.
Latin America in general, uh, I think that Latin American countries are high power distance countries. Okay,
Yeah.
so we normally respect our boss. We normally don't say "hey," for example, Bryson. We say "hey, boss."
Oh
Listen,
yeah. It's like sir.
yeah, and we yeah, or sir, for example. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
we normally do. You don't address your boss by their first name, for example.
Hmm.
It's something that we normally don't do. It's not customary.
Interesting.
But Something that I realized now that I'm working for this American company too is that we tend to be more informal when it comes to that. So there is a low power distance. Actually, I think that the USA is a low power distance company. I don't know.
Hmm.
Sorry, a country, a low power distance country. At least this company is American, and I noticed that because we all address our CEO by his first name, and
Hmm.
I was still like,
Exactly.
I don't know how to address him. I was just waiting and listening to people, and they were like,
Hmm.
"Hey," actually calling him by his first name, and I was like, "Say, I mean, seriously."
Yeah,
And then
yeah,
I started as well, and now I just call him by his first name too. Yeah, but that's
definitely.
something that
You
I
make a good
normally
point
I don't
though.
do.
Um, so generally speaking, in the U.S., it is a lower, sounds like power distance in Colombia. However, I would do what you do, even in that situation, and I'm from that culture, would be I listen to see how other team members would address the CEO in that situation. Because some people prefer more formal um, addressing, so like Mr. Smith, for example, versus John. So it just depends. But generally speaking, it's a pretty flat organization in the sense that usually people who report to the boss are casual and informal in communication and also offer up ideas. That's something I didn't know about Colombia, though, where you would have to have a very formal Mr., Mrs. You listen to them and don't necessarily provide your feedback. So very interesting.
I was like, "Sí, señor. Sí, señor."
Sí, señor. Yeah, whatever you say, I got you.
Yeah,
And don't be late and stuff.
yeah. Yeah, it's always a season. Okay, so but something, I don't know if I had actually reflected on this before, but I think that in Venezuela we are a little bit more. I think that Venezuela is not a high power distance country. I would say it's a
Hmm.
little bit kind of low. It's a low power distance country because I remember,
Similar to the
or I don't know
US.
if it depends. Yeah, I would say, I guess that maybe it depends on the company culture as well. Because I worked for the French Alliance, and I don't remember calling my boss sir or anything. I
Hmm.
would just call her by her first name.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So,
Interesting.
but it's something that I realized in Colombia. So I think that maybe there are differences in Latin America too. So
Yeah, yeah,
we cannot
probably.
generalize.
And also the boss might be a little bit more comfortable with that,
Yeah,
than some of
I guess.
perhaps like older generations like that power structure, for example.
Uh huh. Yeah, you got a point there. That's actually the reason. You got a point
Yeah,
there.
I mean, it depends. The same in the US as well. Not as much, but probably a higher power distance. But cool. Well, that's about all we have time for. Promise to keep it short and informal. We hope that you got some value if you are practicing English, want to practice your listening skills, and learn cool things about culture. And ultimately, if you want to do business in either the United States or Colombia, I think we provided some pretty cool little tips and tricks that get you started on the right track. As a reminder, Stephen has a group called English for Business, correct? Is that it?
Yeah, we can help you with the business etiquette and everything. So if you want to know about business vocabulary, and well, that's the right place. And we talk
Yeah,
about culture too.
come check it out. Like I said earlier, he knows three languages, so he's very well rounded with not only communication across culture, but also just the language. So come check it out there. We have about 1,200 followers, 1,300 followers here on YouTube. I don't see 1,300 people in here, so like, share it with your friends, and if you can comment below, drop a comment. Come follow us on Instagram. We don't have 1,300 followers there. We're looking to grow our following. It's bamboo, BAMMBUU underscore languages. If you give me a follow on that page, we'll send you a direct message promo code that gives you a discount on your first month. And you can come practice English with Steven or some of our other instructors. And we would really appreciate it. So, like and subscribe below. If you like this new format, also let us know. We could always check it out on a more formal setting with an informational session or maybe another IELTS session in particular. But we had a fun time. I had a fun time learning about Steven's
Yeah.
history with not only his business history, but his friend who makes him mad. Other than that,
Um,
I appreciate it.
okay, yeah, we had a ball.
Yeah, yeah, no doubt. Okay, so if you guys like it, let us know. Other than that, it's been a pleasure, and we will see you next time.
See you.